Hey, welcome in everyone. Dave Celentano here with Guitar Tricks and our Wednesday night YouTube classes, free for everybody watching. We're working on Mixolydian mode today, week 2 of 1. We did week 1 last week. So go ahead and print out your curriculum, open that up. Sorry, I don't have this already set up here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, here we go. All right, I got my Mixolydian sheet in front of me here. There's 2 pages. If you open up the text box that's underneath your YouTube video, right now you're going to see an area, a blue URL link that says you can print the curriculum. Should have 2 sheets. One of them is a diagram, 3 neck diagrams with a couple of the fingering options for the Mixolydian, as well as page 2 is the tablature, which we're going to look at a little bit more today. We didn't do page 2 last week. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So if you remember from Mixolydian, we talked about it being kind of like a major scale with a flat 7th degree. Okay, now we got some good questions here. I see Bougie looks like a new student watching. Hello, welcome in from India, I think you said. Okay, cool. Yep. All right, cool. And then Theen, yep. And then Trish is here. Cool. Steve, Peter, Lisa in Michigan, and Dave Carlton has a good question. And then Russ. All right, Dave's saying, fundamental question, when playing G Mixolydian, is the key considered C or G Mixolydian, or does either one work? Well, generally when you're playing if we're doing something in the key of G, like Paradise City from Guns N' Roses is G Mixolydian, because the chords at the beginning are G, C, F, back to the C, G. Okay, kind of like that. So those 4 or 3 chords, Dave and everybody else, G to C to F major, back to C, back to G. So the fundamental chord, the foundational chord, the tonic, sounds like G, like it all wants to pull back to the G. And you got to ask yourself, what major scale has those 3 chords in it? Every major scale, and if you don't know this, people, you probably want to get familiar with it. If you want to understand the modes more than just playing a scale pattern up and down, because there's a lot more to it than that, just playing the scale. I've got students that have come to me and say they know all their 7 modes and they can play all the patterns of them. But when they solo, they have no concept on how to use them. So really, we got to kind of do a little bit of this theory homework. Guitar Tricks, we got a ton of lessons on theory, and you should check them out. If you're not already a member, they've got some good deals going right now. And I just saw an ad on YouTube. They've got a 60-day money-back guarantee. So you can try them out, pay for a subscription, try them out for 60 days. And if you absolutely don't like it, you'll give your money back. And I doubt you won't like it, because we've got a ton of videos, lessons, and a bunch of songs. But what we're talking about today here is the modes. We got a lot of lessons on the modes too. In fact, last week I shared with everybody some of the lessons on the site, and I'm going to do that again tonight here. Let me get that open up here. So if you are a Guitar Tricks member, you can just click the link I'm going to share with you. Searching Mixolydian mode. And then I'm going to share with you the couple that I did last week. We're doing Mixolydian today, and it's a major mode. I'll explain all that in a little bit. And then let's see what else we got. Modes and the major scale. So I'm going to share 2 different links with everybody. You know what? Hang on one sec. I'm sorry. I got to just do one quick thing here. It would help to be logged in. And obviously the same with you folks. When I share this link with you, if you're not logged into your Guitar Tricks account, it's not going to take you to the link. It's going to ask you to log in. Okay, so what we're going to do is share with you one of the major modes practicing. And this lesson, Christopher's our instructor on Guitar Tricks that does this series of modes in the major sounding modes realm. That would be Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian. Okay, I'm going to share this link with everyone. Put that up there. And these are worth to check out if you want to get deeper and some more insight beyond what I'm doing with you in this free 1 hour lesson. Okay, I got that one. And then a way to practice the modes is this next lesson I'm trying to get up here. Let me go back one here. Sorry about the lag here, folks. Hopefully that's not the same tutorial. You can let me know on that. But anyway, those are some good lessons on the major modes. Now back to what I was talking about. Oh, and also King 50 is there, yeah, from Northern Nevada. Hello, hello. And Jim Gregory. Cool, cool. So Dave, your question is on that G Mixolydian. You want to, like Guns N' Roses knocking on, or Paradise City, it's G Mixolydian. So you got to ask yourself, what major scale has those 3 chords in it? Now, if you're familiar with the major scale and the chords built out of it, the diatonics chords, the 1, 4, and 5 chord are the major chords. The 2, 3, and 6 are the minors. And the 7th chord is that minor 7, flat 5, or a diminished if you're just doing triads. Okay, so the 1, 4, and 5 are your major chords. So for Paradise City, if we think it's in the key of C, well, actually, let's start with the key of G because it is the first chord is the key of G. I mean, is the G chord. Start with the key of G. G would be 1. Count up 4 letters from the G. G, A, B, C. And you can use your fingers. Something handy to do with your hand. Okay. 4 notes up from G. G would be 1. Then A, B, C. C is number 4. That's the 4 chord. Okay. There is a C chord in our progression. So Paradise City might be in the key of G major. Okay. The 5 chord in the key of G major, though, is G, A, B. G, yeah, A, B, C, D. D is the 5 chord. Well, there's no D chord in our song. It's Paradise City. It's an F chord. So it's not the key of G major. Okay. Let's try the key of C major. Okay. If C is your 1 chord, count up 5 from that. C, D, E, F is the 4 chord. That's in our song, Paradise City. Okay. Now count up 5, or the next letter after F. If F is 4, then G would be 5. There's your 3 chords. C is the 1, F is the 4, G is the 5 chord. So Paradise City, at least the beginning part, is in C major. But we don't want to call it C major, David, and everyone else. You want to say it's in G. And if you want to be specific, or honk your theoretical horn, that you know this stuff, you can say specifically it's G Mixolydian. But by saying the key of C, even though it is, that implies that C is the focus of the song, and it's not. The focus of the song is the G, even when I do that. All that riffing is off of the G note, not the C. Okay, so I would do that, David. Consider it G Mixolydian. Call it G. So there you go. Okay. I know it's a little confusing, people, but just if you get it, cool. If you don't, that's okay too. But hopefully I'm piquing your interest enough to want to search out this information. Okay. And then also floating all over the internet, you could find your answer that way. But in Guitar Tricks, we got lessons that are specific and are in order. That's one thing I noticed with a lot of my students that just start taking lessons with me. They're all over the map with what they've learned. They, cherry pick this and that, and they don't really have a set plan. Guitar Tricks, we got a definite set plan for everybody. and it could be acoustic finger style. We got stuff that'll take you down that road. If you want to be a shredder, we got plenty of lessons that'll take you down that road. If you want to be a blues fanatic, we got tons of blues lessons. So that's in the key of G, Dave. Good question. What we're going to do today is focus on the key of G Mixolydian, which is C major, in other words, but we want to focus on the G notes as being the root. So that's what our neck diagram. We're going to do a little review of this first, and then we're going to work on the tablature page in a minute. But the G Mixolydian patterns, I got two of them for you. The first one is the caged version. That's real easy to play. If you got shorter fingers, don't got that big of a stretch, the first one's going to be really good for you. And if you do have a little bit of a bigger finger stretch and you want to also maybe play a little faster and a little more organized, the 3-note per string version is the second one. And that's how I've laid out all of our mode lessons here. Is I give you the first one is the compact cage pattern of that mode shape. And then the second diagram is the 3-note per string one. Okay, and again, a little review. The cage patterns are real handy and easy. You only have to know 5 of them. But if you look, there's a couple strings that have 2 notes, and then most of the other strings have 3. Like in this G Mixolydian, the 6th and 1st string have 2 notes, and all the other strings have 3. If you go up through your other cage patterns, if you're familiar with that, the other cage patterns have at least 1 string with 2 notes, and then some strings have there's 1 string with 2 notes, and there's some of the patterns that have 2 strings with 2 notes, just like we learned in the Mixolydian here. That kind of messes up your picking. If you're into playing organized and getting your picking chops down, it would make sense to have the same number of notes on every string. That way, whatever you're playing will sort of have an even and a predictable picking pattern. Because when we're picking, folks, you got to get the alternate picking down. And we should be doing that with these patterns. So if you're not familiar with alternate picking, then don't even go further. Let's just sit down and get comfortable with playing these patterns alternate picking wise. So the first pattern. And it's good too to end on the root notes. In your diagram, the red dots are the root notes. So those are your 3 Gs on string 6, 4, and 1. Okay, so when you play it, even though you end on the 2nd or 1st string, 5th fret, come back to the root, because that'll give you a locked in, a sonic locked into that tonal center. When you're going back down the scale, same thing, end on the lowest, the root note. Okay, and then both patterns end on the lowest root note anyway, so that's easy. Okay, so that's important to know where the root notes are, because when you're soloing, those root notes are going to be real good to end on. Okay, that's a very comfortable one to play, and you want to start with your 2nd finger. Look at my right hand when I do this, people. I go down, up, 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 down, up. Okay, and then back down, same way. Down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay, then we've got the 3-note per string version. Just look down at the 2nd neck diagram. That one's going to require a little bit more of a finger stretch, because we're going from fret 3 to 5 to 7 on the 6th string, 5th and 4th. Then the 3rd string is frets 4, 5, 7. 2nd string is 5, 6, 8. 1st string is 5, 7, 9. I'm sorry, 5, 7, 8. And then all together. And then back down. So when you go up, try to end on the root note on that 2nd string, 8th fret. Go. See, it sounds like it locks it in. The G sound. Back down. Okay, and then that lends itself to 3 notes per string, you could do a lot of legato type playing where you pick the first note and hammer on the next 2. Back down. Pull-ups. Okay. Or you could try to pick sequences, like where you pick every note. I take a pattern that's just simple 6-note pattern. I go first string, all 3 notes go up and back down. Then end on the second string, 8th fret. Then I do the same lick on the 2nd to 3rd string. Same lick on the 3rd to 4th string. Just make sure the notes you're playing fall in the context of the scale pattern. Okay, same on the 4th to 5th. 5th to 6th. Okay, anyway, you get the idea. So the 3 notes per string allows us to play all that faster stuff because it's always the same number of notes per string, and the picking patterns are a lot more consistent. So, but we're not really talking about shred here. We're just trying to learn how to apply these modes and what makes them different. Okay. The other thing too is in the pattern, you want to see, for instance, the chord G. One way to play it is a bar chord in the 3rd fret. Okay, if you do that, you're going to notice if you superimpose this, try to see that pattern of your G bar chord up in the cage pattern for the G form. You see that all the notes of the bar chord, right, are all within that pattern. Those chord tones are really good. When we're soloing people, that's what you want to focus on when the chords are going by, okay? Not just randomly playing your scale up and down and oblivious to what the chords are. If you follow the chords in any rhythm, you're going to sound a lot better than if you just try to play notes and not know how to connect it. It sounds disjointed when I hear some musicians playing over a backing track, even though they're playing the right key and the right scale, but they're not following the chords. Okay, so you want to follow the chords. Where the band I'm in, we were doing this song called I Got a Spell on You. It's an old song by Screamin' Jay Hawkins, and a lot of bands have redone it. CCR, Creedence Clearwater Revival, redid it. But the chord change has got this chord change. It's 16 bars, right? And it's in E minor to A minor, back to C minor. Then A minor again, up to B7. That's the first 8 bars. Second 8 bars is E minor, and then it goes to A minor, to C major, E minor, B7, and then a quick change turnaround. E minor, A minor, E minor, B7. Okay, so those chords, I could just play a solo in E minor and just not even pay attention to the chords. And most of it might sound okay. But if you follow the chords, people, it's going to sound more melodic. People will like it better because it sounds more musical, all right? It shows that you've done your homework. Like when I play over that, the first chord is E minor. So I try to land on target notes, notes that are, I'm playing the E minor scale, but I'm landing on target notes of that particular chord. So I go, hold the E, and then end on a B note at the end. Those are all notes in the E minor chord. Then the A minor chord comes up next. Bend up to the A. And I end on the E note's in the A minor chord. And then back to the G, that's like the flat 7 of A minor. And then a little fill that's still, when it goes back to E minor, then I go play notes that are in the E minor scale and then end on chord tones of E minor. Then it goes to A minor. So I play a little A minor arpeggio. And then I bend up a half step below the note that I'm shooting for, which is out of key, but then I go up in key. That creates a little tension too, where you play a wrong note on purpose, and then you bend up to it. And then I do it again with the next inversion of A minor. Okay, I play A minor arpeggio, then a wrong note that's not in the scale, but then I bend up to the right note. So often I'll play the note a half step below the note I want to play, and then I'll bend up to it. Okay, then it goes to B7. So I'm going to play a lick that outlines some of the notes in the B7 chord, but while staying in E minor. On a note in the B7 chord, and then again launch up. And after the B7, it goes back to E minor. So all this is B7, then E minor. I play 3 notes in the E minor chord, and then bend up to the E. So I'm specifically trying to play notes that are in the chord, but still staying within the framework of the scale. I'm going to demonstrate some of this, how it applies to the Mixolydian in a couple secs over a little backing track I pre-recorded on my phone. Hey, Second Chance Band, good to see you here. And Russ, I appreciate it. Thanks, buddy. Glad the explanation helped you. Okay, so we do that little lick for B7. Okay. Then it goes back to A minor. Okay. I like that lick right there. Where I bend up on the second string, and then I go to the third string, come down. And then the band's on A minor, so I do come back and play the A note. And then a little A minor arpeggio sweep, and then the band goes to C. See, I come back and I end on a couple notes in the C chord. Then it's E minor inversion, B7 inversion. Then it's E minor, and I just do a little tapping lick. A minor, E minor again, B7, and then it's over. So all together, people, you hear it, it goes. A minor, A minor again, B7. E minor, still E minor, A minor, C, E minor, D, E minor, A minor, E minor, D7, and the back on the E. Okay, so that sounds pretty melodic over the tracks, and even if you don't hear the tracks, you can still kind of hear the chord change because I'm specifically picking notes from it, okay, following the chords. Now that I was given that example because it's kind of complicated. It's not like soloing over a blues where you just have 3 chords, or Mixolydian where we have generally 3 chords, okay? So quick comment here. Russ is saying, just curious if the other guys in the band have your vast music knowledge. Actually, Russ, no. A couple of them do, but, you know, most of the musicians I played with are just self-taught, and they're real good, though. I have solid group of players around me. David saying, asking, guitar sounds great today. Nice preset. Yeah, it's the Axe Effects, Dave. I actually created this preset. It's when I bought my Axe Effects, I did some tutorials on. I didn't do them. I studied the tutorials. Okay, from some guys on the YouTube on how to use this. One of my buddies at Guitar Tricks, Michael Leckie, who does a lot of our song tutorials, he has an Axe Effects too, and I asked him who he would refer me to study and learn from, so I can figure out how to use that thing. And he gave me some guys to check out, Dave, and I basically took what that tutorial video showed me, and I kind of built my own 80s effects, 80s guitar sounds with this. So I don't have a name for it, but it's got you know, maybe when we're doing a lesson next, Dave, I can actually go into the preset and I'll show you what amp I got and what other things I have on it. But I've got definitely a little bit of saturation, and I've got a nice little reverb and a little bit of a tail delay. And I think I also have an enhancer on there. The enhancer is like an aural exciter. It just kind of makes everything just sound more robust, like an EQ, but it just flushes everything out real nicely. Appreciate it, Dave. Glad you like the tone. I might not use it for the whole lesson tonight, but I've been using it right now. So people, that I Put a Spell on You is kind of a complicated little 16-bar rhythm because the chords don't repeat until after 16 bars. So you've really got to be clever in how you're thinking about soloing over that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and check out real briefly what we did last week. I had a little rhythm. Sometimes, you know, I've got a bunch of albums out on my own. In fact, right there are 2 of my solo albums and then 2 more. I got 4 of them. That's one of my books I wrote not a long time ago, but a few years back. But anyway, on my albums, you know, I write songs. Most of the songs on those albums are originals. And when I'm writing songs, I'm sure if any of you are writing songs, you usually come up with parts and riffs. And that's kind of how almost most people write songs. They come up with like a little melody or a vocal line or a guitar riff or a chord progression. It sounds good. And sometimes we'll come up with something cool, but we don't know what else to do with it. So this little rhythm I came up with, played this last week, I'll play it again for you, is in D Mixolydian. So I'm going to change gears here. We're going to play in D Mixolydian for a minute. And I'll talk to you about how to do that with those 2 patterns of G that we just learned. But for D Mixolydian, it's always the 1, 4, and 5 chords we're doing. But what we want to do is focus on the 5 chord as being the sonic root, the tonic. Okay. So if I'm doing D Mixolydian, D would be the 5 chord. The 4 chord would be the letter right before D, C. So I'm going to do D to C. And then the 1 chord, if you can count backwards from D alphabetically, D, C, B, A, and then G would be the 1 chord. So we're really playing in G major here, or I'm playing in G major here, but I'm focusing on the D, the 5 chord being the root. So I'm going to go D, C, G, D. Just like Sweet Child of Mine, Guns N' Roses. Okay, but we'll talk about that in a sec. So my chords was D, C, G, back to D. Okay, but how do you make a cool rock kind of riff? So what I was doing is playing a couple notes of the D chord on the second and third string, and then I'm going to pedal ride the D string. And then I'm going to move my first finger back to the fifth fret on strings 3 and 2, and play the same two strings. That's part of the C chord. And then I'm still going to pedal on the D string. So I'm trying to keep the D tonality going the whole time. Okay. Then I'm going to move back to the 4th fret, 3rd string, 3rd fret on the 2nd string for part of a G chord, and then pedal on the D string. And then wrap it up with a D chord back here, 2nd fret in the 3rd string, 3rd fret in the 2nd string. So we got this. Okay, and then how can I beef that up? That Mixolydian chord change. Okay. Well, one thing you can do is add other notes of the D Mixolydian scale to that, like this. C. G. Okay, let's see how that sounds. 2, 3, 4. I thought at the end, how can I maybe make a little riff that climbs back up, takes our ear back up to this note. So I just go up the Mixolydian scale, but add a little chromaticism in here. 2nd fret on the 6th string. 3rd fret is the note that's not in D Mixolydian. Actually, I lied to you, folks. It's 2nd fret, 3rd fret. The 4th fret note is the one that's not in. It's the G sharp. It's not in the D Mixolydian scale. And then open 5th to 2nd fret to 3rd fret, and then open 4th. Okay, so that's my rhythm. I never use that in a song, or I haven't found an opportunity to use it yet, but it's still in the memory banks. And I got files in my filing cabinet, all kinds of musical ideas I've come up with that haven't been used yet. But let's try this one. And I'm going to crank the volume up on my I got it on my iPhone here. So hopefully you guys can hear this. Okay. And I'm just going to come up with a simple melody over that. I'm going to follow those 3 chords. You can hear the chord changes. Let's hear what it sounds like over that rhythm. Real quick, though, to play D Mixolydian, we're going to take that G pattern we learned for G Mixolydian that started on the 3rd fret, 6th string. That was your G note. You got to ask yourself, where's the D on the 6th string? Okay? You should know where this is, people. And even if you don't know all this theory that I'm bringing up, and I'm actually not going that deep with the theory, but you should at least know your notes on the fretboard or try to figure them out. Don't get one of those guides that, guitar necks that has the lights that light up for all the notes, or a sheet of paper you put under there. You got to just figure this stuff out, people. This is the way the old school players did it. You know, you just kind of learn before we had the internet and before we had digital ways of slowing the music down. We always had to put it on the record player and then slow it down with our finger. Or if we had cassette tapes, they had recording cassette machines that would slow it down a little bit or a lot of bit, slow it down an octave, and you could figure the stuff out that way. But we all had to use our ear and figure stuff out. That's how we learn, people. Right now, when everything's spoon-fed to you and they just go, here's the tablature for everything, it's not making you pull yourself up to the next level. Okay, so it's kind of good to sweat a little bit. So where's the D on the 6th string? If you don't know it, figure it out. I'll tell you, though. It's the 10th fret. So what I'm going to do is play the exact same pattern for G Mixolydian we did back here. But I'm going to do it up at the 10th fret. It's different notes, but it's the same shape. It's the same geometry, the same finger pattern. Okay, see how it follows that? Okay, and then the 3-note per string pattern, same thing. We started on the 3rd fret for the key of G Mixolydian. We're going to be up at the 10th fret for D Mixolydian. Okay, and I'm going to explore using those patterns, but I'm also going to kind of go around the fretboard because I know once you know one of the patterns, if you know your other cage patterns, they always follow in the same order up and down the fretboard. Same with the 3-note per string ones. If you know one, then you've got to learn. There's actually, when you do the 3-note per string patterns, there's 7 patterns. So there's 6 more to learn. Well, I know them all, and I see them on the fretboard. So I'm going to explore a little more of the fretboard than just staying right here. But I'm only going to be playing those same notes. Okay, and what we're listening for, people, is that flat 7. That's the only difference between the major scale, do, re, mi, right? The flat 7 sounds like this. Okay, instead of, see, the major 7 sounds really pretty and happy. The flat 7 sounds a little more dark. Okay, so let me crank up my little backing track, and then we're going to get on to that second page with the tablature. Okay, hopefully you folks can hear this, and if you can't, I'm going to do a test really for like 10 seconds. And if you need the backing track louder or me to be turned down, my guitar, let me know. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, Trish is saying, turn up the backing track a little. All right, let's crank that thing. All right, I'm pegged all the way up there, Trish. So let me just try it one more time, and I'll tell you what. I don't think that's helping there. Let me... Okay, let me just try this one more time. I'll turn my guitar down just a tick here. Let me get into the amp setting. All right, I just turned my guitar down quite a bit. Yeah, David. Yep. YouTube is squashing my sound. You know what? Because I always go back and listen to just a few seconds of these videos just to listen to the tone. When I do my Zoom lessons, because I also do Zoom classes one-on-one and some group classes with guitar tricks, the Zoom audio sounds great and it doesn't squash my guitar as much. Zoom also allows us to have we can change some of the audio parameters, but YouTube does not allow us to do that. And it's unfortunate, but when I play to the backing track, sometimes it squashes the guitar, or if my guitar is too hot, sometimes it squashes it. But it's just part of what it is. You know, it's not much we can do about it. Hey, and this is educational anyway. So, you know, when I play with the band or I do my own videos on YouTube, I always make sure the signal is really clean before I even release it. Okay, so let's give this another shot. Appreciate the input there, Trish and David. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Here we go. Okay, anyway, you get the idea. Hopefully you could hear some of that. I'm going to crank my guitar back up. Actually, let's try this for a sec. Okay. And the best thing to do, people, when you're working on these modes is find some tracks, backing tracks you can jam over, and keep it simple. We don't play over a billion chords and think we're playing in one particular mode. In fact, when I demonstrated, I put a spell on you earlier, that's really not 100% in E minor. There's a few spots when it actually goes to E harmonic minor. Okay, but working on the modes, let's just stay with one key. You don't have to worry about changing a few notes here and there, and then keep it simple. Even a one chord vamp would be great to practice soloing over. And that's when you can really hear the sound of those notes that are different, like in Mixolydian, and talked about it in the text box on page 1, that the major scale is, we talked about that when we did Ionian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are the numeric names for the 7 notes of the scale. The Mixolydian, though, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. Okay. Now, think about this too. Go ahead and check out Sweet Child of Mine from Guns N' Roses. It's the exact same chords that I played for my little riff. It's D, C, G, and D. And Slash follows those chords very nicely when he goes. He's playing a little riff that ends on a chord tone. The first chord is D. There's your D. And this is all D Mixolydian. Then he goes to C, plays the, and he ends on a note in the C chord. Then the next chord is G. He ends on the G note. Then back to the D. And then you end on a note, a couple notes in the D chord. All right, it's very melodic what Slash did. And chances are he just jammed over those chords for a while and came up with some really tasty melodic solos. So that's what you want to do, is just try to craft some ideas on your own. Okay, now let's go over to page 2 with the Mixolydian on one string. This is another way to practice it. If you don't have a backing track to play it over, you can still listen to the sound of it. And we're going to actually shift gears. We're going to switch. If you look at my page here, it says B Mixolydian. So another good way of learning your scale is not just melodically with the numbers. Let me switch my guitar tone here for a minute. Not just with the number system, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, but the other way is with whole steps and half steps. And if you're familiar with your major scale goes whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. The major scale is 2 whole steps. If we're doing C major, whole step is 2 frets, half step is 1 fret. So we go whole, half, whole, half. Mixolydian goes whole, half, whole, half, whole. So whole, half, whole, half, whole. You hear that flat 7 right there? It really sticks out when you're really familiar with hearing the major scale. Then you hear the Mixolydian. Hear that flat 7? Sounds like it sticks out. It sounds like a sore thumb, right? But it's a good sore thumb. All right, it's a good note. So what we're going to do is lay that out on the first string, and you're going to think about it in terms of wholes and half steps, okay? So if you look at the diagram, for example, 1, it's all on the first string. You could just use one finger here. We don't need to get fancy with all of our fingers. And you could do all downstrokes as well, okay? So we're going to play the 7 on the first string, and I'm also going to play the open second string because we're doing B Mixolydian here. So I wanted to, why I did change keys is I wanted to play something on the higher strings that also had a droning note in the background. Well, the only droning notes we could choose from was either B, or I could even do it on the G string and play our scale on the second string, do G Mixolydian. Could have done that too. But let's go ahead and try it on the first string with B. Okay, you're going to play open second with the 7 on the first. Then we move up a whole step, and you can hear what the notes of the scale sound like against that tonic root. You're gonna notice it sounds like a sitar, sort of like Indian music, Middle Eastern. So we go from the first to second notes a whole step, and that's what the W and the H's are above, between and above each pair of pairs of notes as we're moving up. Okay, so you got whole step up, another whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Hear the flat 7 there, and then a whole step, and then backwards. You also should be able to do it backwards. Whole step, then a half step, then a whole step, half step, whole step, whole. Okay, it sounds like a sitar, sort of. All right, you can get some interesting different sounds when you start thinking about your scale on one string rather than 6 strings, where you can play licks and sweep picking and tapping and all that other stuff. Okay, one note or one string is a neat way to shift you out of your comfy zone and make you use your ears and be able to see the whole steps and half steps on your guitar. Learning it this way, people, is similar to the way piano players learn the theory, because it's all, you got all those keys on the keyboard, but it's just one long line of notes from left to right, right to left. It's linear, just like playing on one string, like we're doing here. Okay, so Russ is saying cool examples lead up to this. Definitely can hear the scale in the GNR example. Cool, Russ, right on. Second Chance Band saying your examples for each mode have been easy to follow and great for anyone just getting into modes. Yep, exactly, Second Chance Band. Yep. Do you use modes much, Second Chance, Marianne, when you're playing with your blues band and the other musical adventures you do? Just curious. And anybody else that's watching this too, I'm curious. Do any of you use these modes? Your comments on it, I'd love to hear. If you have maybe a favorite mode, get a lot of guitar players tend to find a couple modes that they like better than others. There's definitely different applications. Okay. So we got all of this on one string. That was example 1 is going up. Example 2 is the same thing going back down. Okay. Now example 3 and 4 is taking our little sequential scale exercise that I'm sure if you've been doing scales, pentatonic scales or major or minor, I'm sure you're very familiar with the sequence of threes, like with our pentatonic scale going up in threes. And then back down. Okay, doing them up 3. And then back to the previous note, go up 3. Back to the previous note, go up 3. It's like going up 3 steps. 1, 2, 3, back 1. 1, 2, 3, back 1, start again. Yep. All right, so that's what we're doing in the final 2 examples at the bottom of this tablature page here. These 2 boogers right here. We're going to go up 3 notes at a time on the first string, and you can just use one finger. If you want to use a few, you can too, but the fingering's not quite as important. Okay, and then let me read the comments. I see a few more just popped up here. Second Chance saying, you don't use modes too much for what I do in the band, but I do understand modes. Cool, good to hear there, Second Chance band. And then Jim Gregory, only by accident until now. Right on, Jim. Okay, so this is a good way to practice your scale too, because really when you're playing music, you're probably not going to just go up the scale and back down. You're going to mix up the notes and make up little melodies with them. So that's what's good about doing the sequence of threes, is it's forcing you to get that pattern down a little deeper. All right, instead of just seeing it up and down, going like this. 1, 2, 3. Then the next set of 3, you go back to the previous note. And then go up 3 consecutives. Then back to the previous note. Okay. And then back to the previous note. Okay. And then the next one will be the next bar, 14, 16, 17. You hear that flat 7. And then you could just end it on the root. Or you could even squeeze out one more 3. Okay, so it goes. And then the final example is the same thing going backwards. Go down 3, then back to the previous note. 1, 2, 3. Back to the previous note. 1, 2, 3. Back to the previous note. And you could even do. It sounds kind of cool to play the flat 7s also in the 5th fret. It's below the root. It's another way to think about your flat 7. It's the note a whole step below the root note. Okay, good little bit of information. So all together, people. Back down. Sounds very much like a sitar. You can do that on any string if you use the string below it as a drone. Like on the G string, we got G. You would start 8th fret on the 2nd string and build your scale there. Whole step, step, half, whole, whole, half, whole. I messed that up, people. One more time. Here we go. Get a flat 7. Back down. I like the sound of that flat 7 below the root. Pretty cool. Okay, one last thing, people. Trish saying, I understood the concept of modes, but no hands-on until now. Well, cool, Trish. I'm glad it's helping you a little bit. Best thing, advice, though, is use the patterns. Now, this is a good thing I want to hit real quick. We just finished Mixolydian, and so far we've covered Ionian. That's a major mode. Dorian and Phrygian, we covered those. Those are minor modes. So we're going to look at those when we start doing the next mode, the minor one, which is Aeolian. We're going to bundle that up with the Dorian and the Phrygian. But right now, we want to focus on the major modes for a sec. And I'm going to show you a neat way to kind of compare them to each other. Ionian is major. Dorian and Phrygian, minor. We don't want those. Then Lydian, that's also major. And Mixolydian's major. Well, what makes a mode major and another mode minor? Just kind of like your scales. If the third degree is a minor third or 1.5 whole steps from the root, then it's minor. If the third degree is 2 whole steps from the root, or it's called a major third, it's a major sounding scale. Okay. Now, this is going to require everybody to go back and look at your Ionian mode that I gave you on week 1. The Lydian mode I gave you a couple weeks back, and then the Mixolydian mode, which we just did right here. Okay, so I'm going to play all of them with the cage pattern. So let's do them all over the C root note, okay? Starting on the 8th fret, 6th string. If you play Ionian, that's your major scale. It's going to sound very happy and predictable. That's that. There's nothing unusual about it. It's got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are the numeric names. Now the Lydian, if you remember, what's the difference between Lydian and Ionian, or Lydian and major? There's only one note that's different. It's the sharp 4. So the 4th degree is raised a fret for Lydian. 1, 2, 3. There's your sharp 4. It was 1, 2, 3, 4. Do, re, mi, fa. Now we got our fa is sharp. That's your Mixolydian or your Lydian sound. Yep, the sharp 4, Richard. Exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sharp 4. 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. Sharp 4. 5, 6, 7, 1. There we go. See, if you hear a Lydian rhythm, that sharp 4 sounds good, because this second chord I'm playing is notes of the C Lydian scale, but it also has the sharp 4 built in to it. Oops, my bad. See, if you kind of land on that sharp 4 purposefully, sounds kind of neat. And then Mixolydian, it's just like the major scale, but what's the difference there? Richard, can you tell me the difference between the Ionian mode and Mixolydian? Marianne, cool. Appreciate it. Good night. We'll see you next week. Next Wednesday, we're going to start Aeolian, mode number 6. Cool. Russ, you're very welcome, man. Richard, yeah, was waiting for Richard. He said the flat 7. So listen to your C Mixolydian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 is the major sound. We want to play a flat 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Play the flat 7. That's a Mixolydian rhythm, C, B flat to F. And the flat 7 note, that's in the B flat chord. In fact, the flat 7 is the B flat note. There's your flat 7. Yeah, that flat 7 sound. A lot of blues tunes like to end on that flat 7, you know? Okay, it creates a nice tension and it's a nice color there. So knowing what notes are different from each mode to another and comparing them like that, people, is a really good way to get practice. Another thing too, and I'll let everybody run. If you find a rhythm that's a 1-chord major chord vamp, like C major, just 1 chord with a nice drum beat, maybe a funky bass line or something, or maybe a keyboard playing just C major. I know it's boring, but that way you don't have to worry about changing chords and following the chords, but you can run your different modes. You can play Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian over it, and you can really start to hear what the sharp 4 sounds like for Lydian or the flat 7 for Mixolydian. Okay, we're going to look at that also with the minor modes. Once we learn the Aeolian, start next week, when we get to the second week of Aeolian, I'm going to compare all 3 minor modes. And we're going to talk about that. All right. Good job, everybody. Cool lesson. Appreciate everyone stopping by and hanging out. And then I am going to cut loose tonight. I'll see everyone next Wednesday. Richard, you got it with the flat 7. Trish saying flat 7. Thanks. Yep. Tomorrow for the blues. That's right. You're in our blues class. That's a Guitar Tricks boot camp class. So you got to be a Guitar Tricks member and you got to sign up if you wanted to be part of that too. So Trish, we'll see you tomorrow for sure. Richard, awesome, man. And King 50, we'll see you soon too. Cool. All right, everyone, have a great night. We'll see you next Wednesday. And like I always say, people, keep those fingers flying. If you're not flying and keeping them moving on your fretboard, you're not getting any better. So pick up your guitar and practice. Even if you're just working on cowboy chords, that's okay. As long as you're practicing and picking up your guitar, have fun with it too. All right, we'll see everyone next Wednesday. Take care. Peace. Bye.